Okay, wonderful. We are 3 minutes past the hour, so I will go ahead and get started. Welcome again. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm very excited that you all could join us today to discuss IPA's Consumer Protection Research Initiative 2025 Call for Proposals. My name is William Blackman. I'm Associate Director for Consumer Protection. I manage IPA's Consumer Protection Research Initiative. And so what we will do during this hour is spend a few minutes providing a quick overview of our call for proposals and our priority areas. We'll direct you to some resources and we'll provide some guidance on the application process. And then we will try to keep as much time as we can during this hour to address questions from you all. So throughout this session, you're welcome to drop questions into the Q&A function of the Zoom platform. If you have questions that have already been posted there, I think there's the option to +1 questions so that we can try to prioritize the most pressing or the most popular questions. If we are not able to answer questions during the either because we run out of time or we don't immediately know the answer to a question, we will be following up via email with a full set of responses. So you can rest assured that your question will be answered either now or very shortly. I am actually, Natalia, can you shift to the next slide? Perfect. I'm joined by a few colleagues on our financial inclusion program. This slide shows our team of staff working on IPA's financial inclusion program. I believe on the call we have Paul, Lauren, and Natalia, perhaps others, I'm not sure. So they'll be there to assist. If you have questions, you'll see them in the chat responding to some of the questions. We have a team of staff based in the US, in Europe, and in Africa. Next slide, please. Okay, so we'll begin by just giving you a brief overview of the Consumer Protection Research Initiative at IPA. Next slide. So before diving into this call for proposals and the specifics there, I just want to briefly introduce you to the Consumer Protection Research Initiative. This is an initiative that aims to support regulators, researchers, and the private sector in identifying risks that digital finance consumers are facing. We know that there's a range of consumer protection risks that consumers are exposed to. We know that those risks are changing and evolving as digital finance grows and evolves itself. And so we want to, number one, just understand the extent of these consumer protection risks, what types of risks are out there, the consumer segments that are harmed by these risks. And then we want to secondarily test solutions that attempt to mitigate these risks. And so the focus of our call for proposals is mostly on the second part, trying to understand the effectiveness of solutions that aim to mitigate consumer protection risks. But we also do work sort of descriptive research that helps us understand the extent of those risks. The work that we do it involves not just running academic-led impact evaluations, which is what this call for proposals today is focused on, but also 2 other activities. And so I'll briefly cover both of those. First off, we create a number of public goods that help both regulators, researchers, others in this space monitor for consumer protection risks. And so right now we're in the midst of deploying a consumer survey that is being deployed across 10 countries. We will be deploying it this year and again in 2027. And so you can look forward to the results from that survey that delve into a range of consumer protection risks that digital finance users are exposed to. later this year. We also have results from earlier rounds of these consumer surveys from Uganda, Kenya, Nigeria, and Bangladesh available on our website. Perhaps one of my colleagues can drop a link to that. We also conduct a price tracking exercise. This is across 18 countries. We collect in an automated manner prices for digital financial services, common transactions, transfers, payments, focused exclusively on payment products across 18 countries. We collect this data from providers' websites on a monthly basis, and we are just getting started with putting that information online on our website, and so it should be available quite soon. The second sort of general activity that we carry out is direct engagements with regulators. And so the goal of these engagements with regulators is basically to help them take a more data-driven, data-informed market monitoring approach. And so we work to build their market monitoring capacities by, for example, improving the analytics that they can run on customer complaint data that they receive. We also work with them to develop and test soup tech solutions. Finally, the third sort of topic area is academic-led impact evaluations of solutions that attempt to address consumer protection risks. This is the type of work that we fund through our open call for research proposals, and this is what we're here to talk about today. So hopefully that gives you a broader sense of the initiative, and now we can sort of focus in on this call for proposals. Next slide, please. Excellent. So as I said, we will focus in now on the call for proposals. I'll spend a few minutes talking about this, and then I'll hand over to my colleague Natalia to talk through the process for submitting proposals. Next slide, Natalia. Okay. Much of this information is taken nearly directly from our call for proposals guidelines, which we, I think, maybe have already linked to. Yes, we have, and we will talk more about later on. And so you're very much encouraged to follow along, look through the guidelines for a much more in-depth coverage on everything that I'm talking about right now. But in brief, the Consumer Protection Research Initiative accepts both large grants and smaller grants. We'll talk about the caps later on. But the large grants are meant to fund rigorous impact evaluations, typically randomized control trials. Smaller grants can either fund pilot projects that are not yet ready for a full-scale impact evaluation, or low-cost full impact evaluations. These can be add-ons to existing studies, lab-based experiments, or evaluations that rely on administrative data, which is typically lower cost than full-scale randomized controlled trials that involve significant field work. In terms of our focus areas, we are particularly interested in exploring risks and solutions that address issues of related to digital payments and credit products. So we're interested in both payments and credit. We're interested in understanding risks and how to address those risks, mitigate those risks, and ultimately build trust for consumers that are utilizing digital payments and credit products. The risks that we are most interested in are, number one, fraud, fraud prevention, fraud detection, interventions that help consumers address fraud and avoid falling prey to fraud. Secondarily, we look at price transparency, everything around prices. So high prices, prices that are poorly disclosed, issues of pricing transparency and disclosure, and the impact of this limited pricing disclosure on market competition. Third, we focus on debt specifically. So we look at over-indebtedness, how to ensure that digital credit is responsible, how to ensure that debt stress is minimized. And then finally, we focus in on the complaints redress process. Consumers should have the ability um, to submit complaints when issues do occur, things go wrong, and those complaints should be easy to submit, accessible, and the redress process should be effective. So if things go wrong, consumers should be able to resolve their issues quickly and relatively easily, which we know is not always the case these days. Okay, next slide. Um, one more sort of bit of advice on sort of our research priorities and what we're most interested in funding. These cut across the consumer risks that I've mentioned before. Number one, we're quite interested in understanding the gender disparities in consumer protection, both in terms of understanding how consumer risks differ between genders, and understanding how solutions that aim to mitigate consumer risks may be more or less effective for women versus men. We also are interested in productive credit, specifically understanding consumer protection risks and solutions to those risks, particularly for those that are taking credit for productive reasons. So this, is typically small business owners, MSMEs, and smallholder farmers. Finally, we're interested in the role of agents, mobile money agents or digital finance agents, banking agents, how agents can be deployed to promote consumer protection in digital finance. So how can agents, for example, improve transparency? How can we ensure that agent overcharging is minimized and fraud perpetrated through agents is minimized? Next slide, please. Okay, I'll just quickly give a few examples of studies that fit our consumer protection research initiative priorities well. I'll also direct you to our website once again, where we list all projects that we've funded through the Consumer Protection Research Initiative in the past. Perhaps one of my colleagues can drop a link to our list of funded projects. These four are actually a mix of studies that have been funded by the Consumer Protection Research Initiative in the past, and studies that were funded elsewhere, but we just thought were a fantastic sort of fit to the type of work that we're interested in. So four projects focus on our four priority risks. When we start, looking at fraud, we ran, with researchers in Kenya, a study that essentially tested the effectiveness of information provided to consumers on how to detect scams. And we measured the effectiveness of this information provision on scam detection ability. In terms of pricing transparency, we found an interesting project in Chile that it provided pricing information, a price comparison tool that improved consumers' sort of expectations on loan, interest rates. And ultimately increased the amount of negotiation that consumers made when soliciting loans. So it ultimately led to an improvement in offers and lower interest rates. In terms of debt stress, work was conducted in Mexico, trying to understand the effect of adding some friction in typically quite fast digital delivery of loans, so digital credit. So this work measured the effect of slowing down the disbursement process, and found that adding just a few hours to the timelines for dispersing funds via digital credit led to a reduction in default rates. And then finally, on complaints redress, in Uganda, an experiment was conducted that provided legal aid, so lawyers providing sort of support to consumers that had disputes with their mobile money operator and had lost funds. And so, tested through a randomized controlled trial how effective this legal aid was on sort of improving the consumer redress process for those consumers in Uganda. So this is just a few examples, and please take a look at the full set of studies that we've funded in the past. Next slide, please. Okay. So that's in quite brief an overview of the types of research areas that we're most interested in, the consumer risks that we're most concerned about, and the types of projects that we're excited to fund. I will turn it over to Natalia to talk a little bit about the timeline and process for submitting applications and answer some frequently asked questions. After that, we'll turn to your questions.
Thank you. All right, let's dive into the timeline for this call and go over a few of the most frequently asked questions. So there are some dates to keep in mind. So the call officially went live on April 7th. So all resources, links, and submission forms are already up. There are two submission steps: the expression of interest and the full proposal. The expression of interest is due May 4th, and the full proposal is due June 15th. If you submit an expression of interest, you'll hear back from us with feedback by May 16th, and once full proposals are in, we'll share funding decisions by July 28th. Both submissions are through an online form, so we will link those forms are on our webpage, and I'll share tips for filling those out in just a bit. But first, let's get into some frequently asked questions. So how many proposals will be funded? We got funding for up to 4 small projects, since one is already been funded, capped at around $75,000, and 3 full impact evaluations, again, one already funded, capped at around $300,000. The final number of funded projects depends on the quality and volume of proposals we get, but we won't fund more than those caps. If you are not sure which category your project fits under, you can send us an email or send an expression of interest, and we'll try to guide you. And what's the deal with off-cycle funding? So if you got a compelling idea, maybe you're building on a study already, or you are in the field, or there's a policy rolling out soon, we can consider off-cycle funding. So this happens case by case. Reach out. Just note that how many off-cycle projects we fund depends on how many are selected through the main call. Then what if a practitioner has a great idea, but no research partner? So if you're a practitioner, but don't have impact evaluation experience, reach out. We'll work out how to match you with the researchers who have the right experience and interests. And moving on to some other questions. So are researchers based in the countries where the study will be conducted encouraged to apply? So short answer, yes, absolutely. We really encourage participation from researchers with in-country experience. Now, if those researchers don't have a ton of experience with impact evaluations, we are happy to connect them with other researchers to form strong complementary teams. There's also a couple of things to keep in mind here. We recommend that at least one member of the team is affiliated with a university or a research institution and either has a PhD or is currently pursuing one. We are also prioritizing proposals from our 10 focus countries. So Bangladesh, Ethiopia, India, Kenya, Indonesia, Nigeria, Pakistan, Philippines, Tanzania, and Uganda. That said, proposals from other countries are still welcome if they are strong in other areas and offer learnings to other countries, especially ones relevant to our focus countries. They will still be considered. Now, does fieldwork need to be carried out by IPA? We recommend working with IPA, but it's not a requirement. So partnering with us ensures high quality data collection and also can ensure that the funding process is smoother. But if your project is in a country where IPA doesn't have a country office, we can award funding to another organization. And if you do plan to work with a different research management organization in a country where IPA is present, um, it's okay as well. So if you just need to be sure to clearly explain why it is that you are going to partner with this organization. If you need help reaching any IPA country office in particular, just send us an email and we're happy to connect you with the important contacts that lead that office or can help you with your projects. Can funding include researcher compensation? So this is our last question, and here's how it works. So compensation for researchers based at high income countries is generally not included. So compensation for researchers from low middle income countries based institutions is allowed. So it won't be factored into the budget comparison with other countries. So if you are from a low middle income country institution, yes, funding can support your time and effort. Perfect. So that's it for this round of frequently asked questions. Share any other questions, of course, with us if you got more. And up next, we'll break down the most important things to keep in mind when submitting the requested forms. I'm going to particularly go into the expression of interest and full proposal forms, as well as other resources we would like you to review and point you out that they are on our website as well. So first, your go-to source is our call for proposals website. On that page, you will not only find a summary of our core research areas and what we are especially excited about funding this round, but also a link to the proposal guidelines. So this is your deep dive document with all the details of funding rules, application instructions, and more. There's also a link to the previously funded projects. As Willie was saying, it's great for understanding what's been supported in the past and understand how it is that the different research areas are investigated upon, supported by partners, and then taken into action. The expression of interest and full proposal forms are also in the website, both linked and ready for you to fill out. So it's really important you submit these both forms throughout these links. We'll keep updating the page with any new information or resources until the call officially closes. So if you're ever unsure of where to start or looking for more details or getting a review on things before submission, start at this website. Last but definitely not least, let's talk about the forms. So the first one coming up is the expression of interest, is due May 4th. So if you're looking into applying, thinking of applying, this is the one to focus on first. So a quick heads up, submitting an expression of interest is not required to submit a full proposal, but it's highly recommended. Why? Because it helps us get a sense of what you're planning, who is involved, and how your project lines up with our initiative's priorities. So this big picture of your project we receive through your expression of interest, and we learn the most important things about your projects. So focus on sharing those details and think about the clearest, most compelling way to communicate it. So use the word limits wisely and think about what is the most important thing in policy relevance or research focus area or goals that your project is pursuing. And if you do submit an expression of interest, you'll receive feedback and suggestions from us by May 19th. These feedback and suggestions, of course, could help you inform the next steps and take decision on whether to pursue submitting a full proposal and how to best prepare for that. Next up is the full proposal form. this form is due June 15. This one goes much into detail into your project, into your idea, into what you're thinking and who is involved and how it is that your project lines up. So it asks for information on your team, your partner organization, your research narrative and data collection plans. Also goes into detail on your implementation, your timeline, your plans for dissemination, for instance, or your project milestones, of course, your budget. And so we go much into detail on different items we need to know in order to assess your project. We highly recommend giving the form just a careful read before diving in, because there are a few questions and also uploads and templates you need to fill out. So double check any required uploads or templates you need to fill out. And if you're working with a co-researcher or an implementing partner, look them in early. So you are not scrambling for documents close to the deadline. You have the time to prepare these documents, to find a way also to share this information in the best possible way, and be ready to submit by June 15th. And finally, how will your proposal be assessed? So we will be reviewing based on 5 core evaluation criteria. This is first off, academic contribution. So we are asking generally, does this project advance knowledge in a meaningful way in the field? Also, policy relevance. So is this project aligned with our research priorities, with the research priorities of the initiative, and is it useful to policymakers? Do we see this project in other scenarios being shared and being useful in other ways? And then you have technical design. So this is more about the research methods. Are the research methods solid, appropriate? Are they described in the correct manner? And so if they are also described and follow up and thoughtfully carried out. Also, project viability. So is a partnership proposed in this project strong? Is it likely to last through the study? You might be partnering with a regulator. You might be partnering with an important institution or a different partner or research institution. So we just want to know how viable this project is to be carried out through time, and what tools do you have in hand to make sure this is the case throughout the time you are thinking your project is going to be at hand. So, and finally, value for money. So is the expected impact worth the cost? So is everything well thought and put into words into explaining why this is an investment as well? So double check again any other questions you might have. Go back to the guidelines for more information on these evaluation criteria. They are detailed in there, and also share any questions right now or later on to our email if you have ever come up with anything throughout this presentation. So that wraps up the main information we wanted to share with you. Thank you for your attention. We are going now to open it for questions. I'm going to pass it over to my colleague Lauren, who will be leading us through the Q&A session, and we are looking forward to answering those questions. So thanks again.
Thank you, Natalia and Willie. I see some people are dropping questions in the chat. Please make sure to move those over to the Q&A. I'm going to only look over there at the moment. I know both Willie and Paul have answered some of the questions in both places, but putting it in the Q&A will make it easier for me to see. And we have already had some questions answered in the chat and the Q&A, so please review those before submitting any more. I see Willie was typing some answers to questions, but I think first question he wanted to answer here is if we do any matching between experienced researchers who are non-academic with more experienced researchers. And Willie, I'll let you take over.
Yeah, great. I've seen a few similar questions here. So number one, just to restate, all proposals that we fund will include a research team that includes a PhD researcher or a PhD candidate. If you are have expertise in consumer protection and digital finance, and have an idea for a research study that you'd like to carry out, but don't have that research expertise, academic qualification, background in academic research, then we are we'd be very excited to help with that matchmaking between institutions with research ideas and academics that can manage the research. And so the best way of doing that is to submit an expression of interest. You do not at this stage need to have your research team finalized at the expression of interest stage. And then we can use that to try to make connections. You're also always welcome to reach out at consumerprotection@povertyaction.org if you'd like to discuss this further. Lauren, back to you. What's next?
Great, thank you, Willie. We also had some questions on if there are specific timelines for data collection. I know range of sample size will likely be dependent on the researchers themselves and what their study requires, but then we also were asked about if we have protocols for data storage for primary research.
Yeah, I can take that. So in terms of timeline, we would defer to you and the sort of the design of the research to determine when data collection would occur. We do have the possibility of funding projects that would be fairly long term. So over a period of a couple of years, our prime grant that funds this work extends through mid 2028, and so we could certainly not go any further than sort of the beginning of 2028 in terms of completion of projects. In terms of our data storage and sort of all of our sort of technical requirements in terms of data protection and things like that, I would refer you to our website where we have some information about the standards that IPA country offices adhere to in terms of our data collection, and I can post a link to that resource.
Great, thank you. And then I think we had a few questions on if IPA doesn't have a country office in a specific country, who should people partner with? For like survey firms, whatnot.
Yeah, great. So as Natalia said, if IPA operates in the country that you're interested in doing work, we encourage you to work with IPA. It will often be easiest to work with IPA since we can sort of manage the work more directly that way. If you are operating in a country where IPA does not operate, we would look to you to determine the research firm that you'd like to partner with to conduct the field work. If you'd like to reach out to us separately, then we're happy to share some suggestions. We have experience working in some countries where IPA does not have an office, and so we can make some recommendations on survey firms or other research firms to partner with. Though we don't have totally global coverage, and so we would also look to you for ideas.
Great, thank you, Willie. Sorry, just looking through the list here. Joseph asked, are there specific technologies or business models that IPA expects to see in proposals addressing digital payments and credit risks?
No, I mean, I think we would be open to anything. And this is where we're we're quite excited to see what types of proposals come in. So we're I think the short answer to that is no. There's we're quite open to a broad range of ideas.
Great. I'm getting some more questions about budget. That was included in the chat over there, so you can feel free to look into that, and I will once again answer that once Willie's talking. Just looking through here. How do you distinguish between small projects and full impact evaluations? And then someone also asked, to what extent is the full impact evaluation on like a local level? Is it entire country? Is it province, multiple countries, etc.?
Sure. So on the question of determining the pot of the funding size that you're interested in, it it depends on the details of the study that you would like to run. Again, if you feel that a project, an intervention is at an early stage and is not yet ready for a full impact evaluation, meaning it's not it's not defined enough. You're still sort of working on defining what exactly the intervention would look like and figuring out some of the sort of intervention design questions, or it's not ready to be scaled. You don't have the sort of infrastructure in place to scale it to a large enough group of recipients to adequately power a full impact evaluation. Then you might choose to run a pilot. Depending on the sort of data sources that you have available to you, if you're able to do this through administrative data that's much lower cost, then you might also choose to apply for a small scale budget. If you conversely are ready for a full impact evaluation, the intervention is well defined. You're able to scale it so that you have a sufficiently powered impact evaluation. Then you might choose to apply for the full large grant. Of course, as Natalia mentioned, we have funding for more small pilots than large pilots, and so we're going to be more stringent in our review process for the large proposals. And so, ultimately, it's sort of up to you to decide which size of funding you'd like to apply for.
Great, thank you. And then we also had some questions on, can we adapt, replicate a project already funded in another country by IPA?
Yeah, so there's nothing, in theory, that is certainly allowed. I think the question is always, are you answering new questions? Particularly if you are testing an intervention that has proved to be effective elsewhere and you're testing it in one of our 10 priority countries, then I think that would be seen as valuable. If the work is being done outside of our 10 priority countries, then the focus should, the question that you should be answering is how will the study sort of answer globally relevant questions? How sort of transferable is the knowledge to new, and different markets?
Great. And then we had someone also ask, if they do get funding through a pilot, could they eventually also receive funding for the larger grant to cover an extension of the project?
Yes, so the short answer is yes, though that is not guaranteed. So, full disclosure, we're, we have a limited pot of funding, which Natalia, I think, showed earlier. And so, pilot projects that are shown to be effective, if there is additional funding available after the initial pilot is completed, then we would certainly sort of look to funding a scaled up full scale impact evaluation of those projects. We that is dependent on the range of applications that we receive in this initial round. And full disclosure, we're not keeping funding in reserve specifically to fund pilots, and so that is not a guarantee.
Great, thank you. Looking through here, we have another person ask again about the matching researchers. So maybe we can just quickly clarify that again. Between less experienced and more experienced.
Yeah, so I think this would happen after the expression of interest period. And so if you are interested in being matched to academics that have expertise in research methods and interest in the area that you're focused on, I would highly recommend submitting an expression of interest. Of course, we can't guarantee that matches will be made, but one sort of comparative advantage that IPA has is our extensive network of researchers from organizations around the world, including a number of researchers that have worked with the Consumer Protection Research Initiative in the past. And so we will do our best to find interested researchers. And so the way for us to gather that information to allow us to do that matchmaking would be through the expression of interest.
Great, thank you, Willie. Looking through more of these. So for any of our funding that we're providing, are we also open to supporting qualitative research?
Yeah, this is a good question. I think some qualitative work research that sort of complements a qualitative research, typically an impact evaluation, would be allowable. IPA's focus and our comparative advantage is on quantitative research, and so we would expect that at least a portion of the work would be quantitative in nature, just because that's sort of our expertise area. But if there is qualitative work that can sort of add depth to quantitative work and complement the work, then that would be very much allowable.
Looking through more questions here. Thank you all for such interesting questions. This is helping us clarify a lot. Someone asked, for the researcher with a PhD, do they necessarily have to be engaged with a university or research organization, or can they be part of a non-academic body?
Yeah, so that is allowed. They do not need to be part of a university or a research organization, but we do expect that sort of qualifications.
And then someone also asked, do you accept proposals from consulting firms and individuals?
Yeah, this is a difficult question, and I think what we will do, I think I want to focus our energy right now on sort of the topic areas and the alignment in terms of the research areas. If there are questions like this related to the types of organizations that might be applying and contracting details, I think we can follow up with responses to that offline, so we can address this question offline.
Great, thank you. Willie, I see you have flagged here that you wanted to answer the questions on IPA's field offices capabilities. Did we already go over that one?
No, thank you. Yeah, so right, the question is there an indication of the capabilities of IPA field offices? Running surveys is clear, but there might be useful things that we're not aware of, such as the ability to link survey data to admin data or collaborations with regulators or companies. Should the country offices be contacted separately? So I would actually say yes, you're very much encouraged to reach out to country offices either directly. Their contact information is on our website, or you're welcome to reach out to the consumer protection team, and we can make those connections. The answer to this question is really that it varies. In some countries, we have extensive engagement with regulators, and we have staff that have experience doing some of this work related to accessing administrative data and matching administrative data to survey data. In other countries, we have less experience, and so it's going to be country specific. And so yeah, I would encourage you to have a conversation with the country office. You should also, of course, answering a few other questions that have been raised about sort of engagement with country offices. If you are planning to work with an IPA country office, you will need to engage with them before submitting a full proposal, because the IPA country office will be directly involved in creating the budget. And so if there is any submission where the research partner is going to be IPA country office, you'll need to engage with them, and they'll be the ones that are drafting the budget in collaboration with the research team, of course.
Thank you. And then we had another question on if we are open to other forms of research from participatory, constructivist lens, or do we have a preference for funding RCTs only?
Yeah, so our sort of comparative advantage is impact evaluations, RCTs, or quasi-experimental methods to try to understand the causal impact of an intervention. We can also fund, as I think has been said in the chat elsewhere, descriptive research that aims to understand, just to measure the extent of challenges. Other types of research that is not focused on establishing causal evidence on the impact of interventions, I think would be less relevant, though I think that the details matter. And so as always, my recommendation would be to either reach out to us and have a conversation, or submit an expression of interest, and we can give a more tailored response.
Great. And then Willie, I saw you were typing an answer to this, but didn't get sent. Someone had asked, if we want to engage an IPA team in our proposal, do we need to budget to cover all the expenses for the IPA team involved? Will it be under IPA's own budget? And then they asked if we have an office in Indonesia, which I don't think we do.
Yes, thanks. I can't talk and type at the same time. Yeah, so we do not have an office in Indonesia, and so so that would need to be conducted in collaboration with a different research organization. If for those that are applying for work elsewhere and are working with a IPA country office, all IPA costs should be included in the budget. Yeah, and so the mechanism for many of these projects that we fund will be essentially the transfer of money from the Consumer Protection Research Initiative part of IPA to a country office part of IPA, for them to spend the money.
Great. And we've gotten a lot of questions in the chat about people submitting multiple proposals or submitting a small proposal or a large proposal. Do we have specific guidance on that, and any recommendations there?
Yeah, this is a good question that I don't think we have formal guidance on, but I think that at this stage the answer is yes, as Lauren, you've put in the chat. Particularly at the expression of interest stage, I would say sort of the more the better. If you have a few ideas and you're not sure which ones might be most applicable, then I would encourage you to submit multiple expressions of interest. Although we don't have formal guidance saying this, my expectation would be that we would not award multiple sources of multiple grants, some awards to the same research team. So one when submitting full applications, you may want to prioritize. But again, I think we can provide more formal guidance on that after this conversation.
Great. And then we had another question on why we're picking these specific research priorities, specifically the gender disparities, productive credit for small businesses and smallholder farmers, and then the role of agents in promoting consumer protection. Why are we focusing on these in particular?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think they are all important. And actually, on gender specifically, Lauren, in fact, led the development of a learning agenda and an evidence review focused on the intersection of gender and consumer protection. And I think in short, we found that there's many open questions and important questions that are unanswered. And so I think that just demonstrates the importance of that particular element. Productive credit is particularly interesting in that much of the research that has been focused, that has been done related to consumer protection and credit has been focused on consumer credit. And so there's sort of a gap in understanding how productive credit may have, sort of its own set of consumer protection risks. Agents, of course, are a sort of a primary touch point for consumers who are using digital credit, and so understanding how agents can be part of the problem, but also part of the solution, I think is valuable.
Okay, and then we have one more question in the Q&A that hasn't been answered, and it is, does IPA have specific IRBs in LMIC countries that we recommend if we don't have a country office there?
Yeah, so we are if we do have a country office, then reaching out to them would be advisable. They will know the local context and the requirements for local IRB and which institutions they recommend. In countries where we don't have an office, we're less likely to have that expertise. And so we would look to you and the research organizations that you partner with to understand the research ethics requirements in the specific country and identify the IRB that is necessary.
Great. So far, I'm not seeing any more questions. We have 5 minutes left, so if anyone has anything else remaining that they're unsure of or they want to dig into more, please drop those questions in now and remember to use the Q&A function. And then Natalia just reshared all of the proposal links and then our previously funded projects. And then right above that, I also shared the learning agenda, which outlines a lot of where those gender disparities exist or where we need more research. So if you're looking for specific research ideas to dig into gender data a bit more, you can take a look at that. Great. Any other questions?
Just to say, in addition to all of that, we will follow up with, we'll do a review of all of the questions in the chat and make sure that we answer any questions that were missed there and the few questions that we needed to sort of defer on. And so we'll put that on our website. And I think, Lauren, we can send an email out to everyone that attended this with written responses as well.
Yes, and then we had one more question that just popped in. Do we have to have a sample distribution of 50% men and 50% women?
No, I don't think we have said that. What is required is when practically feasible, collecting sex disaggregated data so that we can draw insights on the differences in consumer risks and the differences in effectiveness of interventions by gender. But no, we don't need to have a even distribution in terms of the sample.
Great, thank you. And then I see that Paul is typing a response to the last question on allocating fees for the IPA teams. And then since we've gotten more questions on budgets, I also wanted to clarify on the indirect that 15% is not really negotiable. That is a requirement from our donors. So please keep that in mind when you're doing budgets going forward as well, that 15% must stay there for indirect costs. All right. I think Paul has answered that last question. Anything else that people have questions on? All right, I think we are probably all good to wrap up. We will be posting this recording on the IPA website along with answers to all of these questions. And feel free to reach out to us at the email address on the screen here if you have any questions that we didn't get to answer today. Willie, anything else from you?
No, thanks so much. I'm impressed we managed to do this all in an hour. Excellent questions. And yeah, very much looking forward to seeing all of these expressions of interest. Please do reach out if you have things that you'd like to discuss before submitting the expression of interest. We'll try to be responsive on email to additional questions that come up. And yeah, very excited to be working with all of you and to be pushing this learning agenda, this research area forward. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. Have a great day.
Thank you.
The recording should hopefully be up in the next week or so. Thank you all. Have a good one. Bye.